All right, good morning, yogis, or whatever time of day that you might be joining me for this practice. I just finished a nice hour-long meditation, which it seems like we have a lot more time for now that we're stuck inside. If you are a person who has been interested in starting a meditation practice but haven't quite found the right groove yet, for the time being, while quarantine is going on, every Sunday at 6:30 on Facebook Live, I'll be doing a live meditation. So hopefully you'll be able to join us for that. Today's practice is going to be kind of a slow flow. We'll do a little breath work to start, and we'll be predominantly focusing on opening and mobility in the shoulders. So props that I recommend having for today would be a strap if you have one. I don't have a strap with me. I have no idea where I left it. I've been looking around pretty much everywhere in my room and in my car. So far, no luck. So just to prove to you that we can do things without the, yoga props, I'm just gonna use my sweatshirt this morning. So if you have a towel or a piece of clothing that's big enough that you can kind of hold it at a pretty wide wingspan, then you'll be in great shape. And if you don't have blocks, you might use books. For one of the exercises, you could even use like a platter. I would pick something that's not breakable though, because we're gonna be kind of doing a little bit of a, like a Jedi movement. I don't know if that's really a good way to describe it, but you'll see later. So let's start on our mats. We're gonna come into a position on our backs. And if you have the props, you're gonna utilize those. So if you've got your two blocks, one is going to go in between your shoulder blades, and you can have that at the medium or the highest setting. It's really gonna depend on the mobility in your back. And then one can go behind the head. Now, you can have your head relatively propped, in which case it's going to be the same height as the block underneath of your shoulders. Or if you want just to open the throat a little bit more to create some more curve in your cervical spine, then you're going to place that block at one height lower than the one that's underneath of your shoulders. Easiest way to find the placement is to bring your forearms to the mat so that your elbows are kind of halfway up that block. And then you can kind of adjust it as necessary. I'm going to give my head a little bit more support. Some people find that the block long ways is a little bit too much, in which case you can put it so that the shorter edge is kind of right underneath the tips of your wingspan. So finding the option that feels good in your body. If you have any kind of lower back pain, soles of the feet to the floor is a great option. Otherwise, letting those legs extend forward and just letting your feet flop out to the right and the left, bringing your arms to relax next to your sides. Now, if you don't have blocks, don't worry about it. You're just starting on your back in what looks a little bit more like a traditional Shavasana pose. And whatever variation of a beginning shape that you're making, we're going to take a deep breath in together. So really fill up from the very bottom of your belly, up through the center of your chest and the sides of your ribs, paying attention to your back body as well as you breathe all the way up to your shoulder blades and your collarbones. And then open your mouth and exhale. Again, finding that kind of dynamic three-dimensional breath through your torso. Inhale to fill up. And exhale, release out through the mouth. One last time, take a long, slow breath in. And this time at the top of the inhale, take a moment to hold the breath in your lungs. So there's a sense of pausing without creating tension. Retaining the breath in the body for 3, 2, 1. Exhale slowly, like there was a stopper on your breath. So take your time with your exhale. Very slowly start to rock your head side to side, letting your jaw hang loose, letting your teeth part. Maybe even feeling your tongue widen to the bottom of your mouth as your head slowly twists right to left. Still allowing there to be a deepening of your breath, which is going to create some more stretch across the front of your chest. Bringing your head to stillness in the center, we'll reach the arms towards the space behind us and activate your arms. So you might imagine that you are holding an invisible block between your hands, which means your palms are facing in towards one another. Now draw your thumbs towards the top of your shoulders and your pinky fingers back as you reach your arms down towards the floor. We're not forcing anything here. In fact, I want you to see if you can find a little resistance from the front of your body, which means that you're kind of pulling the bottom part of your ribs down and in. Keep toning your lower belly as you lengthen the fingertips both back and then the thumbs down. Soften the space between your neck and your shoulders as you breathe. Find a little reach through your fingers and through your toes. Take one more big breath in. And then exhale, circle your arms all the way back down next to your sides and really let the arms relax. Let's do that one more time. Take a sweep, arms go up and over your head. Palms face in towards one another, about shoulder width distance apart. A little bit of an active press as if there was an invisible block between them. Fingertips reach. Thumbs curl down, pinky fingers reach up and over as you work those arms towards the floor. This should be working with some strength through your front body, through your core to create some resistance. One more big breath in, point those toes, lengthen, and then exhale, bring those arms all the way down next to your sides. Go ahead and roll off of your block so you can turn to your right. And you're gonna bring yourself into a fetal position on your side. You can use that top arm to kind of move your props out of the way. We will use them again later, so keep them handy. And then use your top hand to press yourself up into a seated position. We're gonna come into a kneeling posture now. This is another spot where a block could come in handy. So if you want a little bit of elevation for your hips, one or maybe even two blocks, or if you don't have those blocks, this is where a stack of books would be really, really useful. We're gonna do a seated variation of a style of breath called Breath of Joy. I know this is on a gray, rainy day like this when we've been stuck inside for God knows how long. A really, really nice way to enliven the energy. If you're a person who tends towards anxiety, this might be one that you wanna skip and instead just work on some deep breathing. So this is gonna be a sniff in through your nose, take the arms up. Sniff in, take the arms out. Sniff in, back up again, and then an exhale, we lean forward and we take the arms back. So it looks like this. It's a breath out through the mouth. So to start with, we're gonna stay relatively upright and it's just the arms that are swinging back. This is also a nice way to start to mobilize those arms, getting some dynamic movement through the upper body. And as you come a little bit deeper into it, if it feels okay and safe on your lower back, you can really let the forehead come down towards the floor. So let's begin together. Remember, it's a sniff in, up, arms out, sniff in, arms up, sniff in, and out. You might give it a little sound at the bottom if you want. It's a nice way to release. Two more. Inhale, sweep those arms all the way up. Bring your palms to press above the head, and then interlace your fingers and press the center of your palms towards the ceiling. Draw your elbows in tight towards the sides of the head and relax your shoulders down. Big breath in, creating that side body length, that same sense of engagement through the front of your body as you reach. Pinky edge of your hand pulling down and back. And then exhale to release those arms all the way down next to your sides. Let's find the same action again. Inhale, sweep those arms up slow and easy like they were balloons that we released into the sky. Turn the palms to face up towards the ceiling. And then exhale to round forward. So keep the interlace of your hands, palms pressing away from you. Tuck your tailbone underneath of you and widen the space between your shoulder blades. And you can get a little bit of movement here as well. Shortening the space between hips and ribs so that there's a sense of really closing off through the front body as you round and widen the space between your shoulder blades. One more big breath in here and a big breath out. And then inhale, sweep those arms all the way back up again. And exhale, release the arms all the way down next to your sides. Let's lift the hips off of the block. Go ahead and place it to the side and we'll come into our first downward facing dog. We're gonna build up some heat in between some dynamic movement exercises and some longer holds. So coming into your first downward facing dog, this one can have a little bit of movement. Spreading out your fingers, making sure that there's equal space in between each, so sometimes we get a little bit too broad with that pinky finger. And you're rooting down through the pointer finger and the thumb especially, as you curl your toes under, taking the sides of the waist up and back, starting with a bend in your knees so that you can really lift your tailbone way up towards the sky. Again, finding that sense of tone through your lower belly. See if you can imagine there was a balloon where your navel was now, and that was giving you a sense of lift right at your midsection. And then let's pedal out the feet. Right heel presses down towards the floor as the left heel lifts. And then pressing your left heel down towards the floor as the right heel lifts. And to start with, you're really keeping your pelvis pretty much from moving. It's just the legs that are straightening side to side for the first few rounds. And then you might start to add a little wag of your hips side to side. So getting just a little bit more space along the sides of your waist. Then lift up onto the balls of both of your feet. I want you to see if you can press your chest back towards your thighs. However, I want you to find a little outer rotation of your upper arm, inner rotation of your lower arm. So that means your forearm is turning in and your upper arm is turning out and down. Two separate actions. It can take a little bit of time to figure that out in the brain, but do your best. Pressing the belly and the chest back towards the thighs, belly in and up. One more big breath in here. Full exhale. So seeing if you can release tension as you hold the pose. And then start to walk your feet up towards your hands, as many steps as you need to get there this first time. Take your time. Starting with the palms planted, and then once your feet are hips width distance apart, which is the space for two fists, you're going to reach for the clasp of opposite elbows over your head. Let your head hang in between that frame. Bend your knees a lot so that your belly rests on your thighs, and then rotate your inner thighs in and back as you tilt your tailbone way up towards the ceiling. Start to let your torso hang even more heavily over the legs. So for this one, you're really releasing your lower belly. You might even rock the weight a little bit more forward towards the front of the foot to see what that feels like. And then relax even a little bit more. One more big breath in, feeling the press of your belly against the thighs. And then as you exhale, really, really hanging heavy. Your head is like a boulder, pulling the rest of the spine, tractioning the spine down. Let your hands release down to the floor. Keep the bend in the knees. Traction your feet isometrically away from one another to turn on the outsides of your glutes. And then tone your belly as you roll yourself up to stand. Head and shoulders will be the last things to arrive all the way up. And then sweep the arms all the way out and up, bringing your palms to press above the head. Exhale, palms together, active press of the hands as you bring your hands down in front of your heart. We're going to move through a few sun salutations. Take your time with it, pick the pace that works for you. I'm going to move relatively quickly just so that we can build up a little bit of heat, and that way as we work into some of those dynamic exercises, the body's nice and warm. Take a big breath in, sweep those arms all the way up to frame your ears. Exhale, bend your knees, poke your butt back, fold all the way back down to the floor, release your hands to the mat, folding your chin to your chest. Find your half lift, sliding your hands up to your kneecaps or just below the kneecaps, and find the length from your head to your tailbone. Start to let your chest move slightly forward as your sits bones lift up, bend your knees slightly, a little bit more of a back bend here. And then exhale, let your rib cage rest on those bent knees, on those folded thighs, letting your chin drop to your chest. Same action again, hands slide up to the shin bones, find that half lift, lifting those sits bones back behind you as you curl your chest forward. See if you can soften the shoulders, and then exhale, plant your palms. Step back to your bent knee, downward facing dog, high on the balls of the feet, sits bones way up, and then roll it forward through your spine. See if you can take it kind of one vertebra at a time until eventually your shoulders are stacked over your wrists. Now you have the option to bring the knees down to the floor for this transition. Otherwise, you're keeping those knees lifted. Press into the toes to shift the chest slightly forward, and then bend the elbows in and back, and the whole body is going to lower slowly, slowly, slowly onto the mat. Slide the hands off of your mat so you've got a little bit more of a wingspan, and then press down into the tops of your toes and into your pubic bone to peel the chest and the chin up. We're going to hold this for a moment. Taking your gaze over your right shoulder towards that right heel, bringing it back to center, big breath into your chest, and then taking the gaze over your left shoulder and bring it back to center. Very slowly lower all the way back down onto your belly. Bring your hands next to your shoulders and press your hips back to your heels, but curl the toes under and lift the pelvis up towards the ceiling. So we're coming into puppy pose. With the toes curled under, there's an active press of the ball of the foot towards the back of the room. And you're gonna slide your arms forward until the forearms come to the floor without your hips moving. So we're keeping them lined up directly over top of the knees. And then let your chin and your chest melt down towards the mat. Same thing we were talking about earlier. That exterior rotation in the upper arm is key so that we're protecting, we're kind of keeping ourselves from over mobilizing through the rotator cuff. Forehead is resting on the mat. Belly is strong, so you're knitting those ribs in as you lift your sits bones up, keeping the back of the legs working as you melt the chest down. Now from here, you're gonna start to come forward into what looks a little bit like Sphinx pose. So chest is coming forward. You might need to slide your feet back just slightly as you drop your pelvis closer to the mat. But we're keeping a sense of squeezing through the glutes and the backs of the thighs and the belly. So you're not collapsing the belly down. We're keeping those hips lifted. And then press it back and find your puppy pose again. Roll it forward. Take your time. There's no rush. Like molasses. Keep squeezing those glutes. Keep reaching back through the balls of your feet. And then roll it back. You should start to feel a lot of warmth growing in those shoulders, maybe even some sensation of burning. Nothing should feel sharp, but it is going to start to feel like there's a challenge happening there. One more time, roll it forward. This time you're going to bring your hips all the way down to the floor. Tops of the feet wide on the mat. Inner rotation of your thighs as you traction your hands back to draw the center of the chest forward. You're lifting your chin up so that it's parallel to the floor. Curl your toes under, lift your knees away from the mat, and then you're gonna bring right hand to the floor, left hand to the floor, sides of the waist go up and back to downward facing dog. 5 deep breaths to settle in. This time you can straighten the legs if you want, so we're starting to open up the hamstrings a little bit. Or if you like working with the bend in your knees, I know I love this because it really does help to accentuate the curves in the spine that sometimes we lose from sitting a lot. Knees are bent high up on the balls of the feet. Sits bones lifting way up towards the sky. One more big breath in. And a big breath out. Looking to the top of the mat, maybe bigger steps this time. Right foot comes all the way up in between the hands. Left foot steps to meet it. Find your half lift. Hands slide up to the shin bones. And then exhale, rest the belly and the rib cage on the thighs. Inhale to sweep those arms all the way out and up, bringing your palms to press above the head. And this time let's add a little back bend. Elbows bend to the height of the shoulders. So it's a cactus shape in your arms. And then press your hips forward and lift the frontal hip points up. And then tilt your elbows forward, which is going to start to kind of bring the shoulder blades underneath the back of the chest and encourage an opening through your thoracic spine. Gaze going up towards the ceiling. Keep firming up your legs, reaching down through your feet. Last big breath in. Inhale, arms reach all the way back up to frame your ears. And then exhale, fold all the way back down to the floor. We're going to do that variation of sun salutation again. Inhale, half lift, hands to the shins. Exhale to plant your palms. And if you prefer practicing a jump back, maybe trying to jump back with bent knees to bent knee downward facing dog. Then from here, rolling forward through your spine. See if you can find that articulation all the way through until you're in high plank pose. Option to bring knees down, elbows bend in and back, chest moves forward, lower all the way onto your belly. Slide your hands off of the mat and lift up into your cobra pose. Look over your right shoulder and bend your right knee. See if you can catch the ball of the foot in your field of vision. Bring it back to center, lift the chest, lift the heart, and take it to the opposite side. Left knee bends, look over the shoulder. Bring it back to center. Take your time to lower all the way back down. Bring your hands next to your shoulders. Start to press yourself back with the toes curled under. Remember that we're coming to our puppy pose. So knees stay on the floor, and you're sliding your arms far enough forward that you're bringing your hips to stack over top of your knees. You're letting your chest relax down towards the floor. You're trying to press the armpits down with that exterior rotation in the upper arm. Keep lifting the sits bones high. It's going to help to create that side body length. Bring it forward so that you're working in the direction of your Sphinx pose without dropping the hips all the way down. And then take the sides of the waist back. so that you're coming into puppy pose. Lift the sits bones up, press the chest down. Roll it forward again. And bring it back. Nice work. One more time. We're gonna roll it forward, and this time before we come to Sphinx pose, you're gonna drop those hips down just slightly. Keep the shoulders and the elbows lined up. If you need to slide the hands forward, you can. Little squeeze in those glutes, and you're gonna kick your heels right to left. Now, if you feel like you're resting on your kneecaps, curl the toes under, walk the knees a little bit further back. And you're gonna kick the heels right to left so that we're working the quadricep, the front of the thigh. Keep closing off through your ribs, so you're not letting the belly splay. For 3, for 2, and then on 1, drop the pelvis all the way down to the floor for your Sphinx pose. Tractioning the hands back to widen through the collarbones. This time, if you want, turn your hands out to the corner edges of the mat, just changing the shape slightly as you draw the center of the chest forward. Make sure those legs stay working. You might be pressing into your toes so much that your kneecaps lift off of the floor. Now bring your hands back underneath of your shoulders. Curl the toes under. Lift the hips away from the mat. Right hand comes to the floor. Left hand comes to the floor. And then take those hips back to your bent knee, downward facing dog. If you wanted to work with straight legs, you can do that as well. 5 slow, steady breaths. Noticing where there's tension, seeing if you can relieve it. Looking forward to your hands. This time stepping forward with that left foot first. See if you can bring it all the way up in between your hands. Right foot steps forward, hands slide to the shin bones. Find your half lift. And exhale, release to that forward fold. Hips high, head and shoulders relax. Inhale, arms sweep all the way up, bringing your palms to press above the head. And then exhale, elbows bend, hips forward, chest lifts. One last round, we're gonna add just a few more things. Arms reach up. Exhale, sweep it all the way out, folded forward, rib cage to thighs. Inhale, half lift. Exhale, plant your palms, step or jump back to that bent knee, downward facing dog. Rolling forward to high plank pose. And exhale, lowering all the way down onto the belly. Slide the hands out wide. Inhale to press down. Center of your palms are lifted. Right knee bends, look over the shoulder. Squeeze the glute. Bring it all the way back. Lift the chest a little bit more. Keep those hip points grounded. Then let the left heel kick back. Look over the left shoulder. Take the left foot to the floor. Press down, curl chest up. And then exhale, lower all the way back down. Bring your forearms, or rather your hands, to the mat. Start to take those hips up and back for puppy pose. Toes curl under, toes curl under. Letting your chest come down towards the floor. Maybe it starts to come closer to bringing your chin to the mat. Bring it forward. Keep those hips from lowering all the way down. Keep widening through the collarbones, but also widening through the shoulder blades. And then press those hips up and back. Ooh, getting nice and warm in those shoulders. Bring it forward, keep those hips lifted, squeeze the glutes, squeeze the belly, and take the hips back. Way, way, way up towards the sky. Find that nice curve in your lower back, like there were strings attached to your sits bones. Last time, bring it forward. If you need to move those knees back so you're not resting on the kneecap, go for it. And then squeeze both heels towards the glutes and back. For 3, for 2, this should be pretty challenging at this point, so keep working the lower abs. Last breath. All right, this time we're gonna take those knees wide and bring it to a child's pose. So for this child's pose, we're gonna stretch out the traps a little bit. If you have blocks or your books, you're gonna place those about shoulder width distance apart so there's space for your head in between the blocks. And then your elbows are going to rest on those blocks. You want them close enough together that the elbows aren't coming out wide. You're bringing the elbows so that the sides of your arms, the sides of your forearms are kind of grazing the sides of your head as you lay your forehead down in between the blocks. So your forehead releases into that space and you're placing your hands in between your shoulders. Now, if you feel like you could take a little bit more stretch, we are going to be here for a few breaths. You might lift those blocks up one height higher. Let's stay for 7 breaths here. So knees are wide. Your belly is softened. For this one, you're really going to just let your body hang. If your forehead doesn't quite touch the floor, just keep letting the back of your neck relax. And think energetically moving your elbows forward as you reach your fingertips towards the back of your pelvis. Two more breaths. Your next exhale, just very gently starting to bring one hand onto a block and then the other, rolling up your spine. We're going to take a few shoulder rolls, so lifting those shoulders up towards your ears and dropping them down the back. Let's do that same action again. Beautiful. And then maybe grabbing one of your blocks to sit on. We're going to grab the other block to do one of my favorite shoulder mobility exercises. So this one is a little bit of brain food as well as body food. Let's start by placing the block in the right hand. And the action that we're going to do to start with, that elbow is going to kind of squeeze in towards the sides of your ribs. And without moving the rest of your body, you're going to open and close that hand. So it starts by stretching the front of your collarbones. Eventually, we're going to get into the whole of the rotator cuff, but this is the first action. So nothing moves except for the hand. And you're opening and closing, trying to keep that block parallel to the ceiling. And then from here, you're going to start to extend the hand back behind you. This is where we get fancy. This is why I said not to use something that's breakable. We want something that we don't care too much about. So that arm is going to extend back. And you can lean for this practice because it takes a little while to have enough shoulder mobility to actually stay upright. Eventually, that's what we're working towards. I'm not there yet, for sure. But you're keeping that block on the top of your hand, and you're going to circle it all the way up and around. And you're leaning into that left side body. Try to resist the urge to hold onto the block, so let's not cheat. And you're bringing it all the way back around again with that palm face up. This is one that might be easier to look at and then mimic. And then you're bringing it all the way back up around again. Oh, it gets easier the more you do them. So we have to do this a few times. Now that we're nice and warm, bringing it all the way forward again, keeping that elbow in tight, and then finding that extension back, keeping the palm facing up towards the ceiling. Remember that you can lean into your left side body as you circle that block all the way up and around. We want to keep a sense of tautness, of reaching through the fingertips the whole time, bringing it as far back as possible, and then bringing it all the way back around again. You could do this as many times as you want. So if you wanted to pause the video and do it 4 or 5 times, you can. We're just going to do it one more time today. Taking that arm back behind and then all the way up and around. Yeah, there's a fair amount of effort in this. So if you find yourself wanting to hold your breath, see if you can invite breath into the full action. And then for a moment, just place your block to the side and just close your eyes and see if you can feel into the difference between right and left. Sometimes it really helps to cognitively have a understanding or a intentional experience with what we're feeling in our bodies. I know for me, there's a sense of the fascia opening up enough that there's a lot more access to that right lung. And then let's try side number 2. So you're taking the block and holding it on your left hand. For me, this is the side that's a little bit more pesky. There's always going to be a little bit of asymmetry in the body. Notice that for yourself. There isn't anything wrong with it. It's just nice to be aware of the habits that we have. So we start by opening and closing with that left hand. And then we're going to start to extend that arm back. And we're working to make it straight completely so that we're really broadening the space at the front of the collarbones. Then remember, I know for me, I've got to lean. You may not have to. That arm stays as close to straight as possible. For me, this elbow really wants to bend, which just gives you some information. Bringing that arm all the way forward and taking it slightly back behind as much as possible, keeping the palm facing up towards the ceiling, keeping the block on your hands. Yeah. And bringing it all the way forward so that it's holding into the side of your ribs. Extend back. Try to keep the arms straight, 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 straight as you take that circle all the way up and around. This action is targeting all of the different ways that the rotator cuff is meant to move. So this is a really, really potent exercise. All the way back up and around. Let's do that just one more time. I think that will equal us up on both sides. Reach it back. For me, this side needs a little bit more anyway. All the way up and around. Don't be frustrated if you're dropping the block 100 times. I know I did when I first started. Just keep at it. And then go ahead and place that block to the side for a moment and just feel into the right and the left. Maybe there's a little bit more of a symmetry there. If there's not, know that you can always spend a little bit more time on the side that feels a little tighter. And then open your eyes. Let's go ahead and take that block from underneath of the sits bones and we'll come into downward facing dog again. So from downward facing dog, bending those knees, lifting those hips way up towards the sky, and then taking the right leg back behind you. Really point those right toes so that as you reach back, you're taking the weight out of your arms and into your legs a little bit. Then curl that knee in towards your chest, roll forward, and step your right foot all the way up in between your hands. Back knee is going to lower all the way down to the floor and you'll untuck those back toes for a variation of Anjaneyasana. That back knee is feeling tender at all. You can always take the side of your mat or a blanket for a little bit of cushioning underneath of the knee. Press down into your foot, into your shin bone, and then reach those arms up to frame your ears. So see if you can move your arm bones back here without flaring too much through that front body. Scissor those inner thighs towards one another and squeeze especially that left glute to level off your pelvis to the front of your mat. Pressing hands as if you were holding onto a block. In fact, if you have the block, you can use it. Pressing the hands onto your block, reaching those fingertips up towards the ceiling, and then softening the shoulders down and away from the ears. Keep squeezing the block as you lengthen up, or that invisible block if you have it, and then press those hips slightly more forward so that you're getting more stretch on your back, quadricep, your back, psoas muscle. Maybe starting to curl the gaze up, the chest up, adding a little bit of a back bend. So lower body stays active as we hold this posture for 3 more deep breaths. Slow flow today. Keep moving those arms up. This time we're finding that rotation of the triceps kind of in towards one another. Last big inhale. If you have the block, place it to the side. You're going to bring the hands to the back of your head. Hug those elbows towards one another. Lean the head back into the support of the hands and curl open and up through that upper back. So rather than leaning back, there's this action that feels a little bit more energetically lifting the center of your chest. Exhale, release your hands down to the floor. Let's walk them to the inside of your right foot. Turn your right toes to face the corner edge of the mat. If you can bring your forearms to the floor, awesome. If not, no big deal. You could use that block stack or your stack of books underneath of your arms. And you're tractioning the elbows towards your pelvis so that there's a sense of opening through that front body. And you might rock to the inner, or rather to the outer edge of that right foot and then bring it back to center. We're not doing a tremendous amount of hip opening today, just giving you an opportunity to get a little bit more into the pelvic region. And since we've been working on our quadriceps, keep flaring to the pinky edge of that right foot. You might bend your back knee and catch the top of your left foot with your right hand. Now you can keep a forearm on the block, you can bring your hand onto the floor, or you can put your forearm on the mat. Turning from your belly, from your chest, start to take your gaze up and over your right shoulder. First, you're squeezing that right heel in towards your glute. Keep that hug of your inner thighs towards one another so we're not completely letting go. It's gonna build you plenty of heat doing this. And then you're gonna kick that left foot away from your chest or away from your glutes so that you're opening up through that right collarbone. Really kick that foot away, feeling that opening. And then go ahead and release that back foot. Bring all four corners of your right foot to the floor. If you can, bring both of your forearms to the mat. And we're gonna step back to a forearm plank. So from here, we're gonna walk the feet in towards the center, and we're gonna come into our first dolphin pose for the day. For this dolphin pose, we're gonna use a block. You're gonna hold the block in between your hands, and I want you to make sure that you're squeezing the block with both the pinky edge of your hand and the pointer finger edge of your hand. There's a tendency to kind of flare open through that upper part of the hand. So you're holding onto that block between your hands. If you don't have a block, you're just gonna take traditional dolphin pose, or you could hold a stack of books in between your hands. So you're karate chopping the floor with the pinky edge of your hands, and you're gonna curl those toes under, lift your hips way up towards the sky. Maybe walking those feet in towards the center, but I want you to work specifically on your upper body today. So if for you, your hamstrings are a big issue and walking your feet in close is jamming you up through your shoulder joints, then keep your feet way back behind you and keep pressing the chest back towards your thighs. You can also walk your feet in and then lift your sits bones way up towards the ceiling. Keep that bend in your knees, belly button to spine, holding through that opening. Keep pressing the pointer finger and the base of your pointer finger and the base of your thumb into your block. Squeeze, squeeze, squeeze. For 4. For 3. Big breaths into the space between your shoulders. 2. And 1. Bring those knees all the way down to the floor. Go ahead and move your block to the side and come down into a child's pose for a moment. You might even extend your arms back behind you rather than forward. Maybe a little rock side to side. And then bring the hands out in front of you and roll forward through your spine, coming into a tabletop pose. Curl the toes under, take the sides of the waist up and back to downward dog. Now, if you wanted to take it through a vinyasa, I'm gonna add that option for vinyasa that we were playing with earlier. Rolling forward, articulating through the spine as you come into your high plank. Exhale to lower all the way down onto your belly. Sliding the hands off of the mat. Pressing down to lift up. Bending right knee as you look over right shoulder. And then lowering that foot. Lift up at the center. See if you can curl forward and up with your chest. Softening through your shoulders. And remember that there's a sense of kind of pulling through the sides of the ribs to open rather than just leaning back. Left knee bends, look over left shoulder. Squeeze that heel towards glute. And then bring it back to center. One more big breath in to lift. And exhale, lower all the way back down onto your forehead. Bring your hands underneath of your shoulders. And then from here, you're gonna press back. Hips towards the sky, toes curl under, puppy pose, opening that chest. Bring it forward. We're only gonna do this once this time. Letting your hips drop slightly towards the floor, but keeping that belly pulling up and in, squeezing your glutes, kicking your heels towards your glutes. For 3, for 2, last 1. Curl the toes under, lift the knees, right hand to the mat, or left hand to the mat this time, and then hips up and back, left leg goes sky high. Step that left foot all the way up in between your hands for your Anjaneyasana variation. If you wanted to grab your block, grabbing your block to hold on between your hands as you send those arms up. So pressing that left big toe forward, scissoring the inner thighs towards one another, really squeezing especially that right glute to level off your pelvis. It's gonna help draw your right hip towards the front of the room. And then dropping the weight slightly more forward without losing that sense of foundational work. Move your arm bones back, press the palms onto your block, and reach your fingertips up towards the sky without your neck getting involved. See if you can keep your neck soft. Then starting to curl your gaze up, maybe lifting your chest. 3 deep breaths. Let there be breath in the shape. As you exhale, putting the block to the side, bringing your hands to the back of your heads. And then let's walk those elbows or work those elbows in towards one another. Lean the head back into the support of the hands. Curl up and over that invisible boundary at the tips of your shoulder blades. Up and up and up. Last big breath in. And then exhale, release your hands down to the inside of your front foot, maybe shimmying that left foot over towards the left, and turning your left toes kind of towards the corner of the mat, maybe out at like 2 o'clock. Or rather, I guess on this side it would be 10 o'clock. Let's bring our forearms down onto a block or onto the floor. Remember that as you're pressing hips forward, your hands are tractioning back, but there's always that scissoring of the inner thighs towards one another to create kind of a stopping point, a safety point. We're not stretching further than is necessary. Flare to the outer edge of that left foot, and you might rock it in and out a little bit. And then keep flaring to the outer edge of that foot. You're gonna bend your back knee, and you might reach back with your left hand and catch the top of that foot. Drawing the heel in towards the glute as you turn that left shoulder open. Try to keep your right hip crease pulling back. As you do that, gaze going up towards the sky. And then kick the foot away from the glute. You're holding onto the shape except that that left foot is moving, or rather right foot is kicking away to open up your left collarbones. Release that back foot all the way down to the floor. Place both of your forearms on the mat, and you're gonna step back to your forearm plank. Let's grab our block again here. And this time, you're gonna hold onto the block with your pointer finger and your thumb. So you're making like an L shape here. All right, your hands are gonna be planted. And I want you to make sure that both the inner and the outer edge of the hands stay on the mat. Make that the most important thing first. So you're keeping grounded through the inner edges of your hands. Forearms pressed down, curl those toes under and walk it in towards center. Press the hands down to really work the weight out of your shoulder joints and up and back into the pelvis. So you're pressing your chest back towards your thighs. Again, you have the option to work with that bend in the knees, pulling your belly button towards your spine and really lifting those sits bones way up and back. Softening the neck. Press down to lift up. 4 more. 3, 2, and on 1, knees to the floor, hips to your heels, child's pose, any variation that feels good, makes sense in your body. Giving yourself a moment to kind of rock a little bit side to side, slowing down the breath. All right, let's bring those hands forward again. Bring it back into downward facing dog. So starting with that roll into your tabletop pose, curling the toes under, taking the sides of the waist up and back. Inhale to take your right leg towards the back of the room. Point those toes, lift it to take the weight out of your arms, and then curl in and step through. And then this time, let's come into a high lunge pose. So staying high on the ball of your back foot, bending into your front knee. In fact, let's bend the back knee for now so that we can center the torso. You want to bring yourself so that your shoulders and your hips are stacked. That back knee is at a hover, and then you're squeezing the inner thighs towards one another. Squeeze especially that left booty cheek as you work to straighten that back leg to the best of your ability. But keep that scissoring action of inner thighs towards one another. Again, find that reach out. See if you can find it without the block between your hands this time. That active press in towards that invisible prop and the reach through your fingertips. And then starting to curl up and open, up and open. Take one more big breath and really firm up that back leg. Open, open, open. And then exhale, spin your back foot out. Finding your warrior 2 pose. So for warrior 2, this is a spot where we're going to use, if you can, a strap. I'm going to use my sweatshirt. So we're going to start with the strap behind the back. It doesn't have to look pretty, and it's not going to look pretty using my prop here. So So front big toe is facing forward. I'm gonna open it up enough that I have the arms to use. A towel is another great option for here. And you're gonna reach your knuckles actively towards the front and the back of the room. So shoulders are softening down. There's a sense of radiating from your solar, rather from the center of your chest. Back leg straight and strong as you sink low into that front thigh. Really reach. So you want enough tautness here that it feels like you have to work hard to pull. Shouldn't be loose or sloppy in the strap at all. Bending into that front knee. And then you're gonna let your back hand release down and you're gonna slide the hand a little bit further up the strap. As you reach down with your left knuckles, reach up through your right arm. Softening down through the back of the neck. Really activate that right side body as you take your gaze up. Front knee is tracking in the direction, the middle of those front toes, as you bend into that front knee. 2 more breaths. And then circle your hands down, so putting your strap to the side. Circle both hands down to the inside of your front foot, coming up onto the ball of your back foot. Back knee lowers all the way down to the floor. Again, the option to turn those right toes out, bringing your forearms down to the mat. As the body gets warmer, you might find it easier to find a variation where you're actually touching the floor, but don't force it. Never want to feel anything sharp or nervy, dull sensation. Somewhere where we can breathe, yes. Rocking to the outer edge of that foot. Bend your back knee, catch the top of the foot with your hand, and pull the heel in towards your glute. Spiral open through your chest. Then kick that foot away. Find a little bit more of that opening through your collarbones on the right side as that foot kicks back. And then release that back foot all the way down to the floor. Bring both forearms to the mat. Step back to your forearm plank. We're gonna take one last rotation through the shoulders. So, last time for the block. And this time, it's the pinky edge of your hand that's touching the block. So the backs of your hands will be resting on the floor. We're just working into all of the different ways that the rotator cuff can move. So, tops of the hands to the mat. This is a hard one to do without help. If you've got somebody at home that you're not social distancing from, you could let them step on your hands. Just tell them to be gentle. You want to have them press into the base of your thumb to help keep your thumb rooted. I was trying to say both words at once. Curl the toes under, take the sides of the waist up and back. And again, walk those feet in if you can, pressing the chest back towards the thighs. As much as possible, keep rotating so that that thumb is close to touching the mat. Mine aren't there on my own. If I had somebody to help, it would be a little bit easier. But you're doing the best that you can, pressing as much of the backs of your hands onto the mat as possible. Chest pressing back towards thighs. Maybe bending those knees, tilting the pelvis up. Breathing for 3. Breathing for 2. And on 1, bring it all the way down, hips to heels. Let your forehead rest on the floor. Give it a little rock side to side. After the effort, finding the ease. Go ahead and move the block to the side and let's come to downward facing dog again. The option to take yourself through that vinyasa variation that we've been working on, or you can skip it all together if you're taking it coming forward. Lower to your belly. Hands slide off the mat. Press down to lift up. Remember, center of the palms are off of the floor. Right knee bends, look back. Bring it back to center. Curl up, maybe arms are straight this time. Remember that core is strong. Glutes are engaged without being clenched. Look over your left shoulder, squeezing left heel towards left glute. Bring it back one more time, lift it up. And then exhale, lower all the way back down onto your forehead. Bring your hands underneath of your shoulders. Press those hips back, finding your puppy pose, hips towards the sky, forearms down. Maybe your chest and your chin are coming closer to resting on the mat. Remember a little outer rotation from that upper arm. Bring it forward, hips stay lifted, finding a little bit of core work, walk those knees back, kicking the heels towards the glutes. This time we're gonna hold. Squeeze belly in, hip points up, heels in, glutes strong. Look forward between your hands. Curl your toes under, lift your knees, right or left hand to the mat, opposite hand to the floor, hips lift up. Left leg goes sky high. Remember that you're gonna need that strap, so keep it handy. Step the left foot all the way up in between your hands. Just make sure that strap is up near the top of the mat. Press down into your feet to rise all the way up. Bend your back knee to a hover so that you can center your torso in space. You might feel a nice stretch on that back psoas muscle. As you move your arms back, imagine that invisible block between your hands. Press in as you reach up, so you feel those bigger muscles of the upper back working. Keep the belly strong as you straighten that back leg, maybe adding a little bit of a back bend. Remember the scissoring action of the inner thighs as you curl open. For 3. For 2. And on 1, you're gonna take it to warrior 2. If you wanted to grab the strap along the way, go for it. So front knee is bent at that 90-degree angle. You're bringing the strap behind your back, or your sweatshirt or your towel. Remember, the arms aren't up here or down here. They're the height of your shoulders. You're softening through the space across the back of your neck, your trapezius muscles. Activate those knuckles in opposing directions like you were trying to rip whatever fabric you were using. And take that steady gaze over your front knuckles. Send the breath across the front of your chest as if you were radiating from that spot. And then revolve it, backhand lowers. That backhand is gonna slide a little bit further up on the strap, and then reach down as you lift up, which is gonna create a little bit more space on that left side body. Now, we don't wanna flare through the ribs here, so if you feel like your lower back starts to do a lot of the work, that left hip point lifts up as you lift your gaze. Tone those lower abs, so feeling the navel pull back and up, almost like you were putting on a tight pair of jeans. Really reach. And then circle those hands down to the inside of the front foot. Go ahead and put your strap to the side. Come up onto the ball of your back foot. Let your back knee lower all the way down to the floor. Lizard lunge again. Spin those toes away from you so they're at an angle. And maybe those forearms can come all the way down to the floor this time. Remember that you're working to lift the chest rather than round it out. Flare to the outer edge of that left foot. Bend your right knee. Reach back with the opposite hands to catch the top of the foot, and then turn so it becomes a little bit more of a twist. Keep drawing that heel in towards your glute as you spiral open. And then kick the foot away from the glute. Keep letting that open your left collarbone. And then release that back foot all the way down to the floor. Both forearms to the mat as you step back to your forearm plank, and then bring your knees to the floor as we set ourselves up for one more time through dolphin pose with the option to play into a little bit of forearm balance. So if forearm balance has never been in your practice, I don't recommend trying it with no teacher in the room to help you out. If you've been working on it but you feel a little anxious doing it at the center of the room, feel free to take your mat somewhere near the wall. Remember that this is all up to you, and you should stay within the realm of your own comfort. We're gonna come back to the use of the block for this one. I should also say, if you wanted to work on another inversion, that's also an option here. So you can either stay in your dolphin pose, you can play with some variation of forearm balance, or you can play with legs up the wall or headstand, really whatever you wanted to work on now, but I'm gonna offer this forearm balance play. So we're gonna come back to the second variation that we used with the hands on the blocks, and we're gonna bring those forearms down to the floor. So you're pressing down into the pointer finger and the thumb as you curl your toes under and the hips lift. Walk your feet in. So you're coming closer to lining up the shoulders with your hips, or rather your hips with your shoulders. Then from here, you're gonna lift one of your legs up, maybe starting with that right leg. Think active reach of the toes up towards the ceiling, so that leg is reaching up as much as you're hopping. And then you're gonna see if you can hop to bring the other leg to meet it. Press up and out of those shoulders. Bring the legs to touch, squeeze and reach through the balls of the feet. Try to close off through your front ribs. And if you got it on one side and you wanted to try it on the other, same thing there. You might take a little breath in between. Feel free to pause the video. if you wanted to, so that you can work on this for a little while. Remember that the reach up through the leg that's extended is just as important as the hop. And that way we're using less momentum. And that way we don't topple over. Side number 2 if you want it. And then we're gonna meet in downward facing dog. So if you have the blocks, you might use the blocks one more time. Option to practice a jump through. So coming up into that bent knee downward facing dog, looking to the space between your blocks, bending your knees, lifting them way up and back, take a big breath in, and then as you exhale, cross your ankles, jump through, and bring your butt all the way down to the floor. Bring the soles of the feet to the mat, take your arms forward, and let's very, very slowly roll ourselves all the way down. So trying to keep the feet grounded on the way. And then once you've lowered all the way down, no rush, take your time, bringing the top of the head, or the back of the head rather, onto the mat. Hands will release next to your sides. We're gonna work into a few back bends. We've done a lot of shoulder opening today, and here's the thing about shoulder opening. So it takes a lot of work to make the space, but oftentimes once we get there, we're fatigued. So this is where we have to start to kind of discern for ourselves what makes sense. If you feel like you've got enough gas in the tank to work towards full wheel, awesome, but don't feel pressured. All right, so feet walk in. The first one we're gonna take is a bridge pose. So you might be doing this with a block underneath of the back of your pelvis or a stack of books. You're gonna press down into all 4 corners of the feet to begin to lift one vertebra at a time off of the floor until eventually you've got those hips lifted. And then you're gonna start to walk your arms underneath of you behind the back so that maybe your palms are pressing down into the floor, or you might even interlace your fingers and reach your knuckles towards your heels. Drag your heels in towards the center of the mat and roll your chest up towards the sky. There should always be a little bit of space between your neck and the floor. So I know for me, if I just give a little press of the back of my head into the mat, it helps with that. We're focusing on the upper back, the thoracic spine. So finding that broadness through your chest, the lift through the chest. Let's take 3 more deep breaths here. 2. And on 1, release the arms to the side and bring the pelvis all the way back down to the floor. Just stay for a few moments to breathe. See if you can resist the urge to fidget. If you find that your lower back feels like congested, it probably means that you didn't create enough length there. See if you can focus on that a little bit next time. Okay, so for this next back bend, option to try blocks underneath of your feet. We're gonna give this a try here in the center of the room. I do recommend that if you could take your mat to the wall, that you put your blocks right up against the molding or the baseboard of the room that you're working in, and that way the blocks don't slide when you come up. In fact, I might try this up against the couch. That'll probably help, and it'll give you guys a better view. So the blocks are pressing up against something, and you're placing your feet on your blocks like you were wearing them as shoes. And you're gonna lower yourself down into a similar preparation that we've been working with. So you're bringing yourself as close enough that you can kind of graze the back of your block with your middle finger. And then you're gonna bring your hands next to your ears. So press down to start to lift your pelvis up, and then lift onto the top of your head. Take a breath here, and then rise all the way up. Chest is pressing towards the space behind you. Draw your knees in, keep your feet parallel, maybe coming up onto the balls of the feet if you want more space. 5 breaths. And then bringing chin to chest and coming all the way back down onto your mat. Bend your knees down towards your armpits. Catch the outer edges of your feet with your hands. Drive the knees down wide, upper parts of your back releasing to the floor. And then maybe straightening one leg into your hand and releasing that and straightening the other leg into your hand. And then maybe straightening both legs into the hands. Remember, you can always move where your hands are holding if you can't catch the foot. Draw those knees back in towards your chest. Squeeze the knees towards your belly. Lift your head and your shoulders off of the mat, rounding through your spine. And then let your arms spill out to the sides of the body in the shape of a T, and let both of your legs drop over towards the right side of your mat. Spinal twist. Bring the legs all the way back up through center and exhale them over to the opposite side. So both knees towards the left, head towards the right. Inhaling the legs back to center and extending them out towards the right and the left edges of the mat. Letting your feet kind of fall open. Making any adjustments so that your body feels comfortable. So if you feel a little jammed in your lower back, start to slide your sits bones towards your heels. Nestle your shoulder blades closer to one another behind the back to broaden your collarbones. And let your palms flip to face up towards the ceiling. Closing your eyes. Take a big breath in, sensitizing yourself to your whole body like you were breathing in through your skin. And then as you exhale, imagine opening the back boundary of your body and releasing the tension down through your shoulders, through your elbows, your sits bones, and your heels into the earth. Let everything soften and release. Feel free to pause the video and remain in Shavasana for as long as you have. Otherwise, finding just a little bit of movement to bring an enlivening back into your body as you deepen your breath. Maybe a final stretch of those arms towards the space behind you. Making your way onto one of your sides to practice, if you'd like, a little bit of alternate nostril breathing before we end our practice. Now, I know we've been urged not to touch our faces, so if you haven't washed your hands recently, you can also practice alternate nostril breathing without your hands. You'll concentrate on one nostril versus the other. It's a little bit more challenging, but an option is there for you, or you could pause and go wash your hands now if you'd like. We'll all use our right hand for this, and the pointer finger and the middle finger are going to rest on the third eye center, space of intuition and inner wisdom. Aligning the spine so that your shoulders are stacked over the hips and that there's that easy rise up through the crown of the head, that the chin isn't jutting forward. Take a breath in through both of your nostrils, and with your thumb, press the right nostril down and exhale through your left. Inhale through your left nostril. And then holding the breath in your body, close the left nostril. Drop your chin down to your chest to find your throat lock. And then lift up on the pelvic floor and the lower abdominal muscles, so we're trapping the prana in the body. And then release the locks as you lift your chin. Exhale through your right nostril. Inhale through your right. Close the right nostril, hold. Chin tucks down and in. Pelvic floor and lower belly lift. Soften around the holding of your breath. Open the left nostril and exhale. Release the locks. Inhale through the left. Close and hold, chin to chest. Find your lower bandhas. Let your gaze go up to the space between your brows. Release the locks, exhale through the right. Inhale right. Close and hold, find your locks. Exhale left. Inhale left. Hold. Find your locks. Exhale right. You're going to take 3 more rounds of that on your own. It helps to not have the sound of my voice. And a round is an inhale and an exhale on both sides. I like to use my fingers to count, so you can move your thumbs down 3 of your fingers to know that you've gotten through 3 rounds. Don't worry too much about getting it right. Just find the concentration, the meditation in the practice of pranayama. If you finish before me, keep going. And then release both hands to the tops of the thighs and just take a moment to notice into the space of your body. A sense of balance, energized yet calm. And we'll seal our practice with the sound of Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. So you can either wait and repeat it after me, or if you know, you can chant it with me. Take a big breath in, hands in front of the heart. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Thank you all so much for joining this practice today. If you feel so inclined and you would like to contribute a little bit of cash flow to this Out of Work Yogi, my Venmo is at Elizabeth-Scullin. If not, feel free to keep watching the videos. I want all of you to be able to keep your practice up through this challenging time, and I hope we will be able to practice together very, very soon. Enjoy the rest of your day.